All right, so we are in part 2 of my escape series from the Church of Scientology. Basically, 10 years ago, right around now, it was actually the 21st, so I'm moving up to it. I escaped out of the Church of Scientology after being in it for 30 years. And thank you to the people who have PM'd me or sent me messages letting me know all different kinds of input on it. I appreciate it. Some people are brand new and they didn't know my story at all. So for this one, I'm just going to roll forward or backwards a bit just so that I can explain to you, just for the people that are new, what happened. And even the people that have been watching me, because you may not know this either. But this is the house I grew up in. Let me show you that first of all. Here's where I grew up in Park Ridge, Illinois. Okay, there I am. Great house, great family, father knows best, fantastic, right? Then in the early 60s, my father started broadcasting for NBC, made a ton of money. They decided we all needed our own bedrooms. They wanted their own home, so they built their quote-unquote dream house. They moved up to Lake Forest, which is one of the wealthiest suburbs in the United States. And it literally changed all of our lives. We were sophomores in high school. For any parents out there, I say it all the time, do not move when your kids are in high school. I mean, it ruined my life for sure, but certainly I think my brothers had a really hard time too, and my dad died there, and, it was just a wreck. But, long story short, I went to college, we moved up to Lake Forest, finished high school, went to college, decided I don't want to do this, went to New York with my roommate, actually. We moved to New York, and here's a picture of me going off in 1967, heading off on our VW bus to Haight-Ashbury to be hippies, which I stayed at and lived right off Haight and Ashbury. And she moved on and did other stuff. And I don't know what ended up happening there, but I met a ton of people there. And during that time, when I moved to Lake Forest, I started thinking, because they're sort of the top of the, people working up to success. They have tons of money, and a lot of them that I met seemed very unhappy. So I started thinking there must be something more. There must be something more than just money, houses, cars, that kind of thing. So that got me looking into Buddhism, Taoism, other Eastern religions, right? Okay, then roll forward. Someone gives me a Dianetics book. It's like now 68, I believe, maybe 69. And someone gives me a Dianetics book. I read it, and I think, this is the guy. That's it. This is the guy. Because he talks about clearing people, and I think, perfect. I don't want to, my grandfather was a doctor. I always loved hanging around with him, helping people, but I thought, I'm never going to go through all of college, all of medical school, blah, 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 how much it takes you to be a doctor, but I can be an auditor, right? So I literally hitchhiked from Chicago to American St. Hill in Los Angeles in 1969 to become an auditor. That was my goal. That was it. I walk up to Scientology, and just like many of you think, I was like, what is this? No way. I was a hippie. I was against the war. I'd been picketing for, a long, long time against the Vietnam War. So here's all these guys in military uniforms, super organized. I was against organizations. It was just like, I don't think so. And if you haven't read the book Blink, read it. It's a really good book about your first instincts. But typical of that, I met with the guy that I was supposed to meet with, and he answered all my little questions and said, let's go meet the auditors. I think that's really what you're interested in. And we went to meet the auditors, and I remember the day I thought, I don't care what these guys do. I love them. I want to be one of them. That's it. Okay, so there you go. A couple of years forward, I joined the Sea organization, which is their big, 24 hours a day you're working for Scientology. But because I have a physical condition of epilepsy, I take medication every single day for it. And I ran out of my medication. So I said, hey, I need my medication. They sent me to the MLO, which is the medical liaison officer, some yo-ho who was some teenage kid but they're really good at what they do, and they act like they really know, right? So he said, well, here's the thing. Medication is really bad, blah, blah, blah. None of us in the Sea Org are on medication, which 10 years later, the executives all agreed was a total weirdo thing. They shouldn't have done it, but they did. And they made me get off my medication. I had tons of grand mal seizures. I knocked out my front teeth in the bathtub, just like Jet Travolta. only I didn't die, but came close to it. Really had bad things happen. And my mother, thank God, stayed on top of it and kept saying, they're going to kill you, Tori. And I was like, no, Dianetics is going to fix it. And she was like, no, Dianetics isn't going to fix it. It's a physical condition. And long story short, I've told you guys about this, but finally she said, either you're on your medication today or I'm going to fly out there, and Scientology will never forget your mother. And so I went on my medication, fought them for 30 years about it, literally. It was a 30-year war. And I finally left in 2000. I didn't leave only because of epilepsy, but it was a big change in my own Scientology Truman Show. That's what I call it. I call it that because a lot of people, when I first left, said, how could you be in something for 30 years and not get it? And I thought of the Truman Show, the movie, and I said, have you ever seen that? And people would literally go, oh, yeah. And all of a sudden, they could get it. And if you haven't seen that show, rent it, because it's a really good movie. So now I'm in Scientology. The things I liked about it, they had the creed, which was, man has the inalienable right to free speech, free thought, which now in 2000, think of it like a triangle. In the beginning, I get in it believing man has the right to free thought, free speech. I'm totally for it. I'm a free speech advocate. At the top, 30 years later, they've whittled me down to where you can't talk to certain people, you can't read certain books. It's very, very isolating. It's unbelievable, but it's a very slow train, right? And, Scientology, the Church of Scientology is really, tricky at what they do. They are. And you don't really quite get it, right? And you're trying to make it work. So I'm having wins, right? I love the people. That's really what I got into it for, was the people. I like the people. And I stayed because of the people. And I stayed because of the hope that I believed, in certain things. That I left because I realized those certain things were not coming about. Hubbard had the thing about a world without war, a world without crime, where good men can survive. I can't remember the whole quotes, but it's a really nice quote. And I still to this day think that's a great quote. I believe in it. But I realize that's not going to go down in the Church of Scientology. And as you can see, with Miscavige, it has just gotten worse and worse and worse, to the point where, it's like Nightmare on Elm Street, truly. And luckily, like just yesterday, Marty Rathman came out with a declaration that is totally answering some questions a lot of us have had. So that's fantastic. The Headleys are suing the church. There's different things going on all around the world. Australia is doing things. But anyway, to get back to my escape, just because I can get off on all kinds of things. So I get into it for those reasons. I want to be an auditor. But now I'm routed out. I moved to Clearwater, Florida with my husband. And Milt Wolf says to me, you need to help us. We came here on a lie. And he gives me this whole bogus story about why they came there on a lie. And so we can't fight this guy, Richard Tenney, who is running for city commissioner. And his whole program is Save Sparkling Clearwater, Stamp Out Scientology. So you, Tori, need to handle it. And there were only about 5 public in Clearwater at the time. So I was like, okay, I will. So I go around just basically talking to people. It's kind of like, why are you doing this? And I mean, I'm telling you, this was an all-out war. People on both sides of the street, across from Flag, Scientology the cult, honk out Scientology, everything else. And I'm like, the first person I went to was a grandmother, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Look at the effect you're creating on my son, who was crying. He was a little baby at the time. And I said, why don't you put down your flags and go home? Just go home, do something positive. So she does, she leaves, and it's like, wow, I got something done. So long story short, I go to meetings and different things. And the end thing, I was raised by my mom. She was a big party queen. She always had parties. That was her thing. So I think, hey, let's have a party, because these people don't know who we are. That's what I thought. They think we have long fangs and we're really horrible. And most Scientologists in general are nice people. They're productive. They work hard. So I said, let's have a party. Nobody can talk about Scientology. Just tell them I am a Scientologist. I'm a realtor. I'm a teacher. I'm a doctor. I'm whatever you are, right? That's it. And find out about them. So we have the little party. After that's the vote. It's a landslide. The guy gets voted out of office. And now I move from sort of yo-ho nobody in OSA, which I didn't really know much about, to like, call Tori. She can handle it, right? So that's really how all the Office of Special Affairs stuff kind of started for me. And now it's 2000. I had been in this kind of what I call the top secret mafia, which I told you my auditor had asked me to open these phony accounts so that they could handle the critics on the internet, which they're still doing to this day. I found out from somebody who left recently. So they're still trying to do their divide and conquer. Their 3 goals were this. And I didn't find out about this till I was really, I'm not going to do this anymore. But their 3 goals were, A, drive it down the page so that nobody will read any of the facts they didn't want known. B, divide and conquer, like spread all kinds of crummy stuff about anybody they don't like. Anybody. So usually the ex-Scientologists, right? Which they've done tons on me now. I didn't know it at the time that they would do something like that, but they did. And then the third one is just kind of slime any area at all so that nobody even wants to post there. Bill Yachty told me these 3 goals. Those are the main purposes that we have. Now, this is a top secret little group that most of Scientology doesn't even know about in the Church of Scientology. They didn't know it existed or anything. So there's my phone. I have to take it. I'll be to part 3 tomorrow or soon. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. Bye.